feared and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me call shin all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such jig over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son, still happy life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Sunday edition of the Chasing the Pennant podcast. I'm your host, Rob. Today, I am joined by Andrew. How's it going, Andrew?
I'm doing very well. Finally had a nice, relaxing day. Just went and worked out for a little bit. That's really all I did, and now have a bottle of water and not your father's root beer with me right now. So going pretty well.
Not your father's. I haven't heard about Not Your Father's in quite some time. I know there was like that initial wave where it was super popular and then it just completely died out. But it's a good choice. I always like Not Your Father's.
That stuff can mess with your stomach too if you're someone that has a
can.
bad stomach after sugar. Yeah, I thought you were going to say a bottle of wine though. I'm not going to lie.
No wine. just a root beer.
When you said bottle, I was waiting for wine.
And that interjection right there by Joe Boric. Boric, how's it going?
Good, Rob. We got our nice patio done. I'll send you guys a picture through the group chat tomorrow since it's dark as all heck out now. But so we were hanging out on there before doing a week late Father's Day mini thing with our family, which was really nice since more stuff was able to space out and go inside, which there was like nobody in there. So that was nice to be able to do stuff like that. So like Andrew, I had a very nice day, and it was very nice to be able to somewhat celebrate Father's Day and have a nice thing to see my aunt and uncle and grandfather I haven't seen in months because of the pandemic.
That's really cool, man. Glad you were able to see them. And last but certainly not least, we're joined by Scott. How's it going, Scott?
It's going pretty well. I've had a bit of a hiatus the last couple weeks because I moved into a new place, had a bunch of stuff going on for work, so my life has been pretty chaotic. But still, I think I live at Target now. I've been to Target every single day for the last 2 weeks since I moved somewhere new. Because you have no idea how many things you have to buy when you move into a new place. Like, for example, did you know that if you live alone and you don't put food in the refrigerator, there's no food in the refrigerator? So I'm very happy to talk to you, gentlemen, and I'm sitting here sipping a Quiet Man whiskey, which I thought was a hilarious name for a whiskey, so I had to buy it when I was at the store. Happy to talk some baseball. Let's get into it.
Hey, you know Scott, what? That sounds like the perfect kind of whiskey that you would sip on a cigar lounge as you're just sitting there smoking a cigar, drinking a whiskey, just chilling by yourself, enjoying a nice, quiet evening. Quiet Man whiskey, perfect for that occasion.
Sounds
Exactly.
like the perfect whiskey for drinking for a baseball game, too, when they used to let announcers drink during the game while they were announcing a Quiet Man. That's like baseball written all over it.
You mean like Bob Uecker in Major League?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Or if you watch Brockmire as well, if you ever seen any of that.
Quiet Man, if you want to reach out and sponsor the podcast, I mean, more than welcome to. We can make this the official podcast of Quiet Irishmen everywhere. But
hey, I would certainly be down with that. I think that applies to me as well.
I think that would apply to probably me as well since I'm Irish as hell. So.
All right, well, Boric, you mentioned announcers, and a certain Phillies announcer came up with an idea the other day, and you have a little bit more on it. Kevin Frandsen. Why don't you get into that a little bit?
Yeah, well, since we're going to do the runner at second base concept anyway in extra innings, he thought it would be a good idea. Now, I loathe shootouts in the NHL. I will start this by saying that. But for the MLB for 1 year, I find this a much better idea to attract fans for 1 year to try to grab people, because with the runner on second, you will have the ability to reset your lineup. But the runner at second, of course, will still have to be that guy that made the last out the previous inning. So, of course, this will make sure a guy that's 0 for 4 with 4 punch-outs or some terrible stat line like that won't have to be up in that situation. And someone like Bryce, or if Hoskins is having a great year and having a great day, those guys get to get up, and Real Muto, etc., Bruce, you get to put all those money guys up rather than having, say, Adam Hazley's 0 for 4 that day, Quinn's 0 for 4 that day, someone struggling at the bottom of the lineup. So I don't know what you guys think of that idea. I usually would not be for an idea like that, but I guess maybe because this year's so topsy-turvy, I just figure, what the hell, it will make the game more exciting, and it will probably draw some younger fan base for one season. So I was kind of okay with it.
Hey, now, don't be hating on my guy Hazley.
I wasn't hating on him. I actually love Adam Hayes, but I'm just saying if you're gonna, I can't say, oh well, we're gonna sub Bryce who's 0 for 4 because people will think I like smoked crack before coming on this podcast.
Nah, I'm just messing with you, man. Anyway, Andrew, I'll go to you first. What are your thoughts on this proposal of sorts here by Kevin Frandsen?
It's something different. I think it's one of the better ideas I've seen thrown around. Personally, I don't want to see it happen. I like the way the game is, and I'd rather just keep the same lineup. And if a guy's 0 for 4, I like the idea of maybe having him start the inning with a bunt, moving the guy up to third with one out, and trying to get him in that way. I think I get it. You want to see more at bats from Bryce Harper and everything, and any other star on the team. So I understand that side of it, but I think just from the game standpoint and from a traditionalist fan, I'd rather just see you keep the lineup and see what you can do with the way it works. And the Phillies are already in a great shape with the way. I mean, if Roman Quinn doesn't play, whoever starts on second, just pitch run with Quinn, and then it shouldn't be too bad to get him in that way. So again, it's one of the better ideas I've seen thrown around, but personally, I'm not a fan of it overall. I'd rather just keep the lineup card and keep going, whether it's 8-9-1 or 3-4-5.
See, I was where you were at from the jump, but then when I listened to more stuff and listened to some of the stuff I listened to on Sirius and podcasts, I was like, for 1 year, I feel like it might draw in the younger fan base better. And then I'm not sure if the MLB will keep that part of the rule. I don't think they would ever keep that extension. But I could see them keeping, like I said before, after like the 12th inning or something, a runner at second base if it works this year. Because like I said on the last podcast, the percentage went up to 70-something% from 45% in terms of the game ending in that first inning in the MILB. So if they see numbers like that, I could see them keeping it. But I've always been a traditionalist and I had that standpoint at first. I just want the game to grow the most it can as well. So having that feeling as well kind of made me lean towards being okay with it.
I get that. I just think we got to be careful with how many rules we kind of tweak here and there. And I know there's been a lot of back and forth with, it's just going to go in for 2020 and then go back to normal. I mean, you don't want to just change every rule there is just for 2020 just to move it back to the way the old game was. Like, I would almost rather, if you're going to change the rule and implement it and keep it rather than just keep going back and forth. I understand it's a weird year, but I think, you're already saying the DH is just going to be for 2020 and then 2021 before the CBA is up. It's going to go back to regular. Before the expanded playoffs got declined, there was a chance that was going to be. So I think we just got to be careful with how many rules we're trying to go back and forth with, because eventually, if you just keep changing the game like that, I feel like you're going to eventually just lose more people in the long run.
That makes sense.
I agree. I think, and this plays a little bit into our next topic too, but I think the more things you change about this year, the more it invalidates it. So if you're, to Andrew's point, if you're going to change something in the game of baseball, it needs to be a permanent thing that we all sit and understand exactly what's happening. It can't just be like all right, we're going to play around with this year and just make it a throwaway. With that in mind, I think they should make a special rule that on Sunday Night Baseball, when everyone's trying to go to bed, it should just be an extra innings basis should just be loaded at all times. Because there's nothing worse than a Sunday Night Baseball game that goes like 18 innings. And I myself, even on the West Coast, have just been stuck watching horrendously long, Yankees Red Sox games or whomever is playing, and I hate that so much. Just speed the game up, get it over with, let me go to bed.
I'm actually the complete opposite of you. I love it when the Phillies go on those West Coast trips and it's like 2:00 in the morning Eastern time out here and they're beating up on the Padres or something like that, or they're giving up walk-off homers against the Dodgers. But yeah, I've always been a fan of that. Maybe it's because I've been lucky enough to have jobs where I don't have to be up super early in the morning. But I don't know. I always kind of like that that late night baseball on the West Coast trips.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's more of just like so I have a bad habit. I think every single Sunday night last year I'd be like, you know what? I can't take A-Rod and Jessica Mendoza again. I can't do it. I'm not going to sit down and watch this. And sure as hell, every single Sunday I watch Sunday Night Baseball, and I watched every second of it. And it always ends up being a 5.5-hour game every time. But
oh yeah.
You should just ask Andrew and I for the MLB TV thing, and then I think you can listen to the radio announcers through that. So you don't have to listen to Jessica and A-Rod.
Yeah, I might have to pick you guys up on that because they are insufferable.
Yeah.
I don't mind A-Rod, but Jessica Mendoza is an awful announcer.
But I was going to say about this.
She is terrible.
About this potential rule change. I don't know if any of you guys, if like I said about the runner on second starting maybe after the 12th to limit injuries and different things with extra innings starting the next year, what would you, obviously I don't want anything to start in the 10th because that's too early going forward, but starting after like say the 11th or 12th inning, what would you think about potentially having this reset the lineup rule with a runner on second after the 12th just so games don't go obnoxiously long? Because I think numbers wise when you look at it you can't argue that does tend to lose fans after a while, unless if it's like a playoff run game, but otherwise
I mean personally I'm not crazy about it just because personally I know a lot of people think differently than I do, but for me, baseball is meant to be a game where you just sit down and you enjoy it and you're not like rushed to the finish or whatever. Like I loved that 19-inning game against the Reds when Wilson Valdez came in and got the win. That was just awesome baseball for me. But at the same time, I understand why a lot of people don't like it. Maybe there's kids in the stands who have school the next day. Maybe there's people who have to wake up early for work and they can't watch the rest of the game. So I do get why you would want to implement some of these things to kind of quicken up the game a little bit. I personally I'm not a fan.
Yeah, come on, Rob. You got to suck it up for the children. Come on.
No. When I have kids, it's going to be the other way around. They're going to suck it up for me.
Whoa. Jeez.
I'd have figured that.
No, I'm on Rob's side. I think like the baseball isn't meant. Again, maybe it's the traditionalist talking, but I really don't think baseball's not meant to have a time on it. Like, if you're going to sit down and watch a baseball game, you know what you're going to sit through. You know you're going to go through it. There's no pace to the game. Obviously, once a pitcher gets in rhythm, he sets the pace of the game. If he wants to start with a slow windup or slow delivery or whatever, so be it. That's the way he likes to pitch. If they want to speed him up, then that's on the offense to kind of get him out of the game or do something to change that pace of the game or change the momentum. So I think, again, baseball isn't meant to have a 15-minute whatever like the NFL does or 12 minutes in basketball. Like, I think that's one of the things that makes baseball special. You don't know if it's going to be a 2.5-hour game and a pitcher's duel or a 4-hour game and a 12-10 finish.
Yeah, I've always said for me personally, especially when going to a baseball game, it's meant to be something that lasts a little while. It's meant to be something where you can grab a few beers and kick your feet up on the seat in front of you and just sit back and enjoy it and not be in a rush to go somewhere afterwards.
Yeah, but Rob, you can't grab beer after the 7th inning.
Yeah, well, make them last. Buy as much as you can before the 7th inning.
If you're in the 18th inning, I don't think you're going to have beer at that point, unless if it's like that game at the Vet that those guys told me about while tailgating that just went until like 3 a.m. where people went to bars and came back or some shit like that. And they decided to reopen the beer stands because the game went that damn long or something like that. That's what they were telling me about when I went to a tailgate the one time, and I ended up parking next to people. I'm like, yo, you want to tailgate with us? I'm like, I wish I would tailgate with you. I just got offered free beer and hot dogs. Yes, of course. Yeah, that was awesome, and that was a cool story about the that. But I'm normally a traditionalist though myself, and Andrew I think really knows that. It's hard for me to watch baseball's ratings decline other than among the minor leagues, but I'm talking about the MLB ratings where I feel something like that might help the younger fan base, and I'm kind of willing to take a minor stake to my heart to have that be so. So.
Well, honestly, I think, Joe, I mentioned this to you before one day. If they were going to change up the extra innings, they really wanted to do something and get rid of the extra innings this year. What would you guys think of, I think it might have been Justin Turner that said this before, but like a home run derby in extra innings. So like if you want to pick a shootout lineup, pick 2 or 3 guys on your team to kind of go out there, and they each get say 5 to 10 pitches, and whoever hits the most home runs combined, that they win the game.
That's an idea. Or you could have, guys take whatever 3 or 4 or 5 swings, and whoever hits the furthest home run gets the win.
That would be pretty cool too. Trying to see which guy can try to get 500 feet or whatever.
Well,
exactly.
To stick with this hockey concept, do you get a like half point for making it that far into the game then, and then the winner gets another like half point? Like how do we justify that?
Oh man, that would be interesting. You would see a team in the standings that has like 32.5 wins.
Yeah. So much more math in baseball because we all need that. Like,
we definitely don't need more math in baseball. There's already way too many analytics in baseball, and I actually like analytics, but baseball has way too much BS in it. So.
Yeah.
Could you imagine a team winning a division by half a game because they lost a home run derby?
The uproar on that would be crazy.
It's like in a full season, 99.5 wins to like 99 wins. That team's like, son of a.
It would be like when the Flyers beat the Rangers in the shootout to get the final playoff spot.
Yeah.
That'd be such a Phillies thing to like lose though. Like I could just picture like as much as I like Hector Neris, I just picture him like giving up a home run in the 9th inning to like blow the game, and then it goes into extra innings, and then the Phillies lose on the home run derby.
They lose by 4 feet in the home run derby. Are you kidding me? I think the city
Bryce hits one 496 feet, and then freaking I don't know, Acuna or somebody like that hits one 500.
Yeah.
Here's a question though: are we having coaches? Because normally pitchers wouldn't throw that slow, so you don't want to have them get injured.
You gotta bring the batting practice coaches out.
Right. Any practice coaches come in to do a home run derby, that's gonna be hilarious.
Do we put Bryce Harper's or dad or whatever on the lineup then? The 60-man roster? Just
you mean Dan Bilzerian?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Anyway, Scott, you mentioned something about how this kind of relates to a topic that you brought up in the group chat before we got going here, and that is the effect that a shortened season will have on all the teams and how they kind of approach everything here. So why don't you go ahead and get into that a little bit?
Yeah, so one of the things, and Andrew had kind of put this up on a tee a little bit for me before, is if we keep changing the rules and making this an experimental season, our team's going to take it seriously. And with that same concept, I mean, we have the trade deadline coming up, which is always awesome in baseball especially, but our team's going to make big blockbuster trades this year. Like, is that going to be a thing? Are they going to extend the trade line out or the trade deadline out? I don't know. I feel like front offices are just going to get lazy over the course of this 60-game season. We're not going to see trades be a thing. And by that same thought, if someone is traded in the middle of a quarantine, do they have to sit out for 2 weeks too? So there are just a bunch of weird things that now
that's an interesting thought.
Yeah, now that we've had enough time to think about baseball starting, and I'm feeling a little more comfortable talking about it actually starting, like what happens when players get traded? Is that not an option? Like, are people like I don't know. Do the Phillies have a chance to be a buyer at the trade deadline? Is there a trade deadline, or is this year just kind of you play with who you got and you suck it up?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Andrew.
I was gonna say, so I was been thinking about that as well, and I think the big thing I kind of look at it is, I think there's not going to be a lot of trades compared to normal years, and I think it kind of reflects on what happened last year and them taking away the waiver deadline of August 31st, which I kind of missed last year, and you kind of saw a lot more teams were hesitant in July 31st area to make that move because you didn't know where your team was going to be sitting yet and use that rental piece. So I think that same thing can almost be applied here is you're not going to want to go out and spend a lot for a guy that might not be here for more than, 1 month of the season in this case, and you're only getting 60 games. So if he's only, like you said, Scott, I don't think they've made a rule on what the quarantine is going to be after a trade. So say they come out with something, and he's got to sit out at least a week, if not closer to 2 once he's traded. And the deadline, I believe, is August 31st. So if you make that trade the 31st and he's got to sit out a week or 2, now you're only looking at the final 2.5 weeks at most of the season. So I don't think there's much reason for teams to make that trade. So I think a lot of owners will be sitting back and kind of not making a move unless your team gets off to a really, really good start and you kind of make that trade early on in the season. But besides that, I don't think there's going to be much going on at the deadline. I think it's going to be pretty much you get what you have on your roster, and that's what you're going to see.
Yeah, for me, the deadline is the 31st, by the way, because all I've been doing when not writing articles is just reading stuff on baseball and hockey because there's nothing better to do. So it's the 31st, and I haven't read anything yet on what the protocol is if a trade goes down. I was honestly surprised there was a trade deadline. Myself, like I think Scott hinted at, he was a little bit surprised. He never said it, but it seemed like you hinted towards that a bit, Scott. But for me, I think the only way trades go down this year, especially for guys that have this year as their final year in their contract, which in more years than not are people that tend to be traded, there's going to have to be verbal agreements, like not obviously a handshake because there's a virus going on, but like a verbal agreement with the player. I'm going to sign an extension with you when I come to your organization. Otherwise, this year compared to any year, there's like really no point of getting, because at least if you get somebody in the middle to end of July, you have them for August and you have them for into all of the games in September as well. You have them for a much bigger period of time than even this year, which is a much shorter clip period, which is just a month. So like, unless if you're guaranteeing you're keeping that guy, or like Andrew said, you're the best thing in the world this year, you're probably not going to take that risk unless if you know that guy's probably going to stay with your team. That's kind of the way I really feel about it this year.
Yeah, just you guys brought up the trade deadline, and if you think about it, all these trade deadlines that acquisitions that happen, almost all of them involve a contending team acquiring a rental player that is in the last year of a contract, like you guys mentioned, and is just meant to help that team down the stretch get into the playoffs and then in the postseason. But that rental player would effectively, as you guys mentioned, only be there for like the last week or so of the regular season, and then in the playoffs. And if your team gets knocked out in the first round of the playoffs, you're talking about that guy. You're talking about paying a pretty hefty price for a guy who plays maybe like 10 games total for your team. I mean, that's going to deter a lot of general managers from making that deal, I think, because when you want to acquire a rental guy, you're anticipating that they're going to be there for, 25 to 30 regular season games and then whenever you play in the postseason. But when you're getting significantly less than that, it makes that player significantly less appealing.
And let's actually take that even a step further too. So that player that's in the last year of their contract, like I think of like the Cliff Lee thing, right? When the Phillies traded for him and he helped them out quite a bit. If he's only playing for, I don't know, like 10 games or whatever the last part of the regular season, how do other teams value that then? What do his stats mean? I mean, he's on a new roster. Like, if you're a new pitcher, I mean, you can only throw so much. Like, if you're a new hitter, you're coming to a new ballpark, getting used to a new routine. Like, what if you just get out there and stink? Like, do you even want to be traded if you're a player at that point that's looking to get a new contract? Like, there's just so many questions that come out of this that I really think there can't be trades this year. They almost need to make a statement and say that something that's not allowed for the players union. But
they might as well just do a roster freeze. And it's interesting you bring up pitchers, because if it's 10 games for a position player and then they get knocked out in the first round, you're talking maybe 2 starts and 1 postseason start for a pitcher. Mm-hmm. That's 3 total games for a starting pitcher right there.
Right. Pitchers are weird. You might go out and have your worst outing of the year, and there's nothing you can do about that. And you might also go out and throw a perfect game. It's just so up in the air.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I was going to say is the other side of it. We talk about the value of the quote unquote star that they're bringing in to try to help their team. How are GMs, owners, and all them going to view prospects this year? Because obviously you'll usually have maybe one big time prospect that you know he's probably going to pan out pretty well, but then the other guys involved in the deal are usually guys you kind of watch throughout the year, you kind of scout, but there's no minor leagues this year. So like, I mean, say the Phillies are like big time contenders this year and we're looking to add whatever guy. Like, how do teams justify our prospects this year who aren't going to be able to, like, yeah, they might see the workouts they're doing if they're on the 60 player roster this year, but I mean, you're not going to be able to see other guys that you're usually going to be able to see and kind of get that extra information out there. So it's going to be it will be an odd year because, again, how do you justify trading for maybe a mid-level prospect when you don't know how he's going to be?
That's the thing that sucks the most about this year, honestly. But I thought the season, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought because all the different doctors talked about ending in October or going deep into October would be very bad for the MLB. I thought the season was ending the end of September, not the middle of September. So wouldn't you have a guy for more than 10 games if you got him on the 31st? Unless if you had
we're saying if he has to quarantine because travel.
Yeah, the quarantine element of it really changes everything, and nobody really knows. That's all circumstance. Like,
yeah, let's say even if you don't,
one would have to assume like.
Even if you don't, it's only
even if you don't have the quarantine, the pitcher's going to get maybe an extra 1 or 2 than what we said, so he'll get 4 to 5 at most.
Exactly, and at that point too, like he probably was just getting into his groove already then. So it's
it would only be worth it if you're that good for a position player, probably, because if you don't have to quarantine, you have a whole month from someone that's having that good of a season, and they do that well for you as well. That can have obviously a much bigger impact for you in this type of season than a pitcher like you guys were saying.
Yeah, and those are all very valid points. And here's some more food for thought. Some GMs like to acquire big name players at the deadline, not just to help their team fight for the postseason, but if they're struggling attendance-wise, they want to try to put some fans in the seats. There's not going to be any fans at the stadiums this year, so that doesn't really matter. That element is completely thrown out the window. So trying to acquire a star player or a talented player to increase fan interest, that the effect of that is really going to be canceled out because we're not going to have anybody in the stands.
That's true, Rob, but my cardboard behind might be in some seats. I'm thinking of sending in some pictures to certain teams. I have a lot of different jerseys and shirts.
Oh, man.
I could be seen around certain stadiums this year potentially if I decide to do that.
We're gonna be looking at games at Citizens Bank Park, and we're gonna see these blow up Joe Bork heads all over the stadium.
We just see 40,000 Joe Borks in the stadium. We'll never make that happen.
With his the sunglasses and the Phillies hat on.
Yeah.
Like using the Skype picture here.
That's an old pic, too. That's probably from like a 3 years ago game at this point.
Oh, man. Anyway, moving on here, we have one of the age-old questions as one of Andrew's polls that we're going to tackle here, but that's just one of the few poll questions that Andrew has posed recently. And so, Andrew, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, we'll start with this old question that seems to always stir up a good debate, and this is something that Scott asked me to do yesterday. So I will turn to him first when I ask it. But the question is pineapple on pizza a good thing or a bad thing? Scott, this was your debate last night, so let's hear your argument for either side to start.
To me, it could not be more clear. Pineapple on pizza is delicious and borderline necessary. I've been dating a new lady friend who informed me that not only am I wrong, that I might be a serial killer for saying that pineapple on pizza is delicious. So I needed to go to Twitter, where all good arguments go to live or die. And Andrew, I could not be happier with the way things are going here. So I got to hear from the rest of you guys. What do you think about pineapple on pizza?
Man. You know what? I just had this debate with a couple friends, no more than I think it was maybe like 2 weeks ago, a week and a half, something like that. And I was in the minority. It was myself and two of my friends. I was the only one who supported the notion of pineapple on pizza. Now, no, I'm not the biggest fan of it. If you give it to me, I'll kind of be indifferent. I'm not going to ask for it, but I won't say no to it at the same time. But with that being said, it is an acceptable topping.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think you put it perfect. It might not be something I'm going to order the first time over like the traditional like pepperoni or something like that, but I absolutely will take it. And I don't know if you guys ever had it, but a really good combo is ham and pineapple. I think that that duo on pizza is fantastic. I don't know if you guys ever had that one, but I believe most places call it the Hawaiian pizza.
Yeah, it is
Absolutely.
Hawaiian pizza, and yes, it is. It's pretty good. I'm not gonna say it's my favorite, but I do enjoy it.
Yeah. Sometimes if I'm trying to get a little crazy, I'll throw you throw the pineapple on there, you throw the bacon on there, and you throw a little jalapeno on there. Just
Jesus.
Yeah, it's wild. I know.
Scott, I
don't wanna
can't believe
get
I
too
actually
provocative
agreed with
here.
you on something related to
But
food.
I was, that's what I was also going to say Jesus about too. But I was going to say, the only thing for me, I never been the biggest coconut or pineapple person my whole life, other than if it's mixed into like a smoothie or something. So, like if anybody has Malibu, I tell them to get it the hell away from me every time they try to bring it near me and offer me a drink. And then, and then I don't know anything that. Oh no, I know pineapple flavored stuff like Svedka and stuff. I also tell those people to get away from it. So there's that. So I'm just gonna answer this question with a way that a great guy that worked in Philadelphia for a while would say sometime. Hell no.
All right. Well, what is it that throws you off? Is it the taste or the texture? Because the texture of cooked pineapple is different.
The taste, because I don't really like pineapple that much. I need it mixed into like my healthy smoothies I make in the morning with like berries and like different things, and then I'm cool with it. And then with ham, like Andrew said, but that's because that's for flavoring and stuff, so that helps with cooking and everything. But just on pizza and just on top of something, I've never been able to really eat pineapple that well. I've just never liked it. It's now in some things I've grown to, but I've had it recently and I still just never really like pineapple unless if it's mixed into my drinks or on something that is more just cooked like with the ham to just for flavoring. It's not like cooked onto a pizza for me still has too much of the flavor in it.
You know what? Now that we're talking about this, I'm actually going to add another AMA question that's similar to this, and I'm doing this because I know it's going to rile up Shane a little bit.
Oh, I thought you were going to say me because I already said hell no to pineapple.
See, after this, I might be ordering. I didn't eat dinner yet. I might be getting a pineapple and ham pizza now.
Hell yeah.
After this, or at least within the next couple days, we'll see.
All right, so you said you had a few more poll questions. Why don't you get into those a little bit?
All right, so the next one is, this one came about just because it's the way I usually make my bed, and it was just an interesting topic I was talking about with my friends. But if you make your bed, when do you make it? When you first get up and get ready? When you get home from work or whatever you're doing that day? Or you just never make your bed at all? And we'll start with Joe on this one.
Normally when I get up, but it can vary because some days like I get up and I'm like, oh crap, it's already blah 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 o'clock, and then I just get up and go, and then later on I do it. So that varies. Normally it's done by the afternoon though. I'm normally not doing it by nighttime. So I would say morning, afternoon.
Okay. Rob?
I can't remember the last time I made my bed. Probably a few months ago. I generally like it to be messy. It kind of feels like a little bit more broken in when I go to sleep. So yeah, I'm sure that if I had a significant other who was living with me, she would probably be forcing me to make the bed or making it herself. But since I'm a single guy and nobody else is sharing that bed with me, that bed is never getting made.
Now, what you meant to say, Rob, is she would kick your ass if you had an unmade bed and you had a significant other that was very particular about stuff around town.
She probably would.
And what about you, Scott?
Oh, I'm a make the bed as soon as I get up kind of guy. Feels good getting into a fully made bed every night. And honestly, I bought some new sheets the other day for the new place, and they're in the dryer right now. So one of the things I'm looking forward to is when we get off the pod here, I'm going to pull them straight out of the dryer, like wring them out, throw them onto the bed and make it up and have a clean sheet kind of night. And I will sleep like a baby because nothing makes you sleep better than clean sheets and a fully made bed.
See, Scott knows what's up.
Yeah.
See, this is why I already told Scott that, Andrew, that I'm going to try to come on your guys' podcast because Joe Boric playoff version when it comes to basketball. And Scott's the man, that made me love Scott even more. So, Scott knows what's up.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. When I get up, it's like I won't make my bed until I get home from work. Like it'll be the first thing I do when I get back from work is I'll just put everything down, go make my bed, and then carry on again. I don't know why. It's just when I get up, I won't make it. It's a weird thing.
Maybe you just want to have something to do when you get back.
That's what all these podcasts are for.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There was a video that had come out about, I think it was a Navy SEAL or someone in the Marine Corps, like they'd given a graduation speech or something like that, and they were saying that everyone should make their bed every day because if you get nothing else accomplished in the day, at least you made your bed and that's how you're starting it. Am I completely making this up, or does anyone else remember
No,
that?
I remember that now that you said that. I do remember that.
There's something very similar to that when I went through basic training for the Air Force. There was that very similar saying, and we had to make our beds the first thing in the morning. And it became a habit for me for the 8.5 weeks that I was there. And as soon as I got home, I forgot all about it.
That would have been hilarious if you said that was the last time you made your bed.
That would be going on a little bit more than 7 years now.
That would be wild. But moving on to the next question. This is another pretty good debate I hear often. But when it comes to toothpaste, you're coming down to the bottom of the tube, and you're trying to get as much out as you can. Are you twisting the tube? Are you rolling the tube, or just squeezing from the bottom like usual? And let's start with Rob.
I actually have one of those neat little things that you put on the tube when there's not much left, and it literally squeezes out like every last drop. It's like, I don't really know how to describe it, but it kind of pushes it all up to the top. So that's how I get the every last little bit of toothpaste that's in there.
Okay, I didn't know they made those. I'm gonna have to order one of them.
You mean like those rolling pin type things that you?
Yeah. I don't know what they're called, but yeah.
It's like a roach clip for toothpaste, but yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
Well, does anybody else have one of those, or what does everybody else do?
I don't have one of those, but I usually just roll it because I find whenever you twist it, that tends to screw it up, and then it goes in all different spots of the damn thing, and then it's just like, oh, great. So rolling it tends to work a lot better, but having those things that Rob had, I had one while I was at school, and then I think I left it there, so I don't know. I haven't known where it has been in like the last 2.5 years. So that would have been great if I still had it, but, I usually just do the rolling thing. It's toothpaste. It ain't too expensive if I can't get it all out.
Okay.
I use Sensodyne toothpaste, so it sits like upside down. So you can roll it if you really need to at the end, but you don't really need to. I usually just keep a roll on deck and throw it out when I need to. Toothpaste isn't a huge priority for me, but I mean, after Rob brings up this genius invention, I feel like I very well need to buy one of those. So
that's the next Amazon purchase.
Yeah, exactly. I might have to go back to Target for the 1,000th time tonight. Like,
the high roller with the Sensodyne toothpaste. You better have the whitest damn teeth in this whole podcast.
Part of it's because I used to wreck my teeth dipping all the time, so you gotta repair that damage. But
fair enough. Fair enough. I should probably start using Sensodyne by that logic then too.
Yeah.
But let's go back to the pizza topic. And what is everyone's thoughts on ranch dressing with pizza? Whether it's putting it on top of it, whether it's dipping it into ranch dressing, or just the crust. What's everyone's thoughts? Let's start with Scott on this one.
I like ranch, but I don't need it. I guess that's how I'd put it. I'm never a drizzle boy. I'm never really dipping the pizza in. But if it's there, sometimes I'll throw the crust in at the end and take a little taste of that. But not really big for ranch or against it, to be perfectly honest.
Okay, Joe.
Depends on the pizza. I don't like greasy pizza. So if I have greasy pizza, I always use ranch because otherwise it makes me feel like shit afterwards if I don't cancel it out with ranch dressing from greasy pizza because I love ranch dressing and hate really greasy pizza. So it balances the two sides out. If I actually have pizza from like places I really like, then I probably wouldn't use ranch dressing. But sometimes while it's there, like Scott said, I just love ranch dressing. So because of my love of ranch, it overpowers the thought of, well, this is pizza because it's ranch and I love ranch. So.
Okay, Rob.
I'm actually gonna go with I could put ranch on anything. Just like Boric, I love ranch. So yeah, ranch on pizza is a pretty good thing. I haven't had it too many times, but when I have, it's been pretty good. And also, it's funny that you bring up that poll because one of the AMAs from one of my friends is in regards to something very similar to this, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But to answer your question, yes, ranch on pizza is a go for me.
Okay. I guess I'm the lone person on this one. I can't stand it with pizza. No matter whether it's just dipping it or putting on top of it, I just there's something about it. It just drives me crazy. I think it's disgusting.
I knew you were going to say that because you always tell me that every time I put it on freaking pizza and you're over my house. So.
It shouldn't be allowed. It's not meant for pizza in my opinion. But my sister
either
does
are
it.
anchovies, and anchovies have been on pizza since like the freaking early 1900s. So.
Well, I guess so. I don't know. But
that might be a completely wrong fact. But
I was gonna say, is that history like per Joe Boric? Like,
but we're just trusting Boric on that one.
Yeah.
But it's going to another one here. And what's the best out of these options? Obviously, there's a lot more options, but with Twitter, you only get four options in the answers. So whenever Twitter you want to extend that would be great for these polls. But what's the better combination of cake here? Vanilla icing and vanilla cake, vanilla icing with chocolate cake and chocolate icing, or chocolate icing with vanilla cake? And let's start with Rob.
I'm going. Oh man, I'm not really a big cake guy.
Okay.
I like ice cream cake, but that's not an option here. With the options listed, I would go with a chocolate cake with vanilla icing.
Okay. Joe?
This is. I would much rather have the hardest sports question you could probably ever ask me in my life. Because this is a very tough question, to be honest. I would much rather have a question of like, at the end of their career, do you think Patrick Mahomes will be the GOAT over Tom Brady, and have to ponder that for 10 minutes before I answer? But, I would say my usual is chocolate icing with vanilla cake, or that, I think it's, what is it called, Napoleon cake, or whatever, the mixed one, how it has vanilla and chocolate in the actual cake itself. I forget what it's actually called.
Yeah, Napoleon.
Yeah, Napoleon. That's also good with, that could be chocolate or vanilla icing for me because that's mixed. The cake's mixed, so that doesn't matter for me.
Okay. Scott?
Very important distinction here. Is it vanilla cake or is it yellow cake per like a Tasty Cake Chocolate Junior?
We're sticking with vanilla.
Okay.
Vanilla.
All right. Well, if that's the case, then it's chocolate cake vanilla icing. Next question.
Also, are we going with like the I guess the whipped cream icing, which isn't really icing, or
That's
the
not
actual
icing, yeah.
actual like thick icing?
Come on.
Actual icing.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's sugar icing, the kind that puts you in a diabetic coma after you lick the beater when your mom's like, hey, Rob, come on.
Yeah, honestly, that's one of the things that originally turned me off from cake when I was little.
Yeah, just eating the beater full of the icing, which I still to this day I demand if I'm home and my mom is making a cake, you better believe I'm getting both beaters there. Like, that's,
Yeah.
It's tough sometimes having to share it with 4 siblings.
yeah, I agree. It's I have 3 siblings myself, and I was always selfish and made sure I got at least one of them.
All right, so I'm a vanilla guy. I obviously like all of them, but my preference is vanilla. I do think an underrated cake is red velvet.
Yes, I agree. I completely
Cream cheese
agree.
icing? Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Cream cheese icing I can fuck with.
Yeah.
I completely agree. Yeah, okay. We're all. Oh, everybody agree with Andrew on that. I also wanted to let you guys know the Phillies finally released their player pool, by the way.
Oh,
Okay.
Just
Sunday night
to
reading to get into here.
There we go.
let you know. Yeah.
We can get into that on one of our shows this upcoming week.
Well, yeah, we'll go into one last one, and one thing that bothers me when I try to sleep, and people say I'm crazy for it because they I guess they go the other way, but sleep with socks on or off? We'll start with Scott.
Socks off, but I didn't realize that was weird or that was an option until I probably was like, I don't know, 16 or 17 or something like that. And I saw a friend doing it at like a sleepover. I just always assumed everyone wore socks all the time. I didn't think you could take them off, but now I do, always.
It was just a permanent staple of your foot.
Yeah.
Rob?
Socks off, only because I've got socks and shoes on all day for work. I got to let the feet breathe at some point, so I might as well do it while I'm sleeping.
Okay. Joe?
Yeah, I completely agree with everybody here. Other than I don't know what your opinion is yet, but other than potentially you, I agree with everyone here. Socks off is for me.
Yeah, I figured it'd be the only one again. Everyone calls me crazy for it, but I sleep with socks on. I don't know why I can't sleep with socks off. It bothers me, and two, I just don't fall asleep as easy.
I'm a super hot sleeper too. Like, don't your feet sweat when you have
that's
socks
what I was
on?
gonna say. I hate having socks on for that reason.
I mean,
See,
not really. I have my room super cold because like I'm still in a dorm room, so it's kind of like it's
you got
really
the AC,
small, and
yeah.
I got the AC on full blast, so like my room's typically like 62, 63 degrees.
Okay, yeah, that's super nice.
Okay, well that makes sense then.
But like
You
even
have
before
an
that, when I'm home though, like even at my even at my house back in PA, like when I go home for breaks and stuff, I'm always sleeping with my socks on. I don't know. It's the way I've always been, and whenever I take them off, I just don't fall asleep as easy. I don't. It's just a comfort thing, I guess.
See, I'm right in the middle of the like 2 months of the year when it's somewhat hot in California, but no one has AC. So I'm at a point now where I'm like miserable sleeping in my boxers or just ass naked, like laying on top of the covers because I'm a prima donna now. And if it's not like 72 and breezy, then I can't sleep. But
I will say this because everyone does always ask me this because you mentioned the sweat stuff, but I do change the socks before I sleep, so it is a fresh pair of socks. I'm not sleeping in sweaty socks from the day.
That's a question I was going to ask because you said the first part, then I was also going to pull a different version of a Stephen A. probably if you said you slept with dirty socks. Yeah. I was going to do that appalled. I was just going to go off at that point.
Well, I'm glad I could save you from going off that time. But that
for
is
what it's worth, I do sometimes sleep with socks on during the winter when it's cold, but during the summer, I mean, it's not just sleeping. Whenever I'm home, I'm usually barefoot, and then obviously that carries over to when I go to sleep.
Okay. No, that's fair. It's the way it usually goes when I bring it up. I forget how it came up the first time with my buddies back at school, but yeah, that was always a joke that they had on me is I always wore socks to sleep, but yeah, that's another edition of these few polls here. I will say, as it's coming down to the final hours, pineapple on pizza is winning 60 to 40%.
huge.
Man,
I need to send a text mid-pod here.
Huge. All right, well that's good stuff. It's good to know that the people are with us. I think it was Bork, you were the only one who didn't like pineapple on pizza, right?
Yeah, but that's also because I don't really like pineapple in general.
That still counts, though.
So 3 out of 4 here on the show, and then 60% who have been pulled. People proving to mostly have good taste.
There you go.
All right, so Andrew, we thank you for the work with the polls. As always, we look forward to more in the future. It's always a fun topic to tackle here on the Sunday edition of the CTP. I've got some over-unders for the shortened 60-game season for the Phillies. And I had some more, but I shortened it down to 6. And I want you guys to give your predictions as to where these will fall. And so I'll start off with the first one. Bryce Harper, over under 20 home runs, which would be in a 60-game season equivalent to roughly 50 home runs in a 162-game season. Bork, we'll start with you. Is Harper going over or under 20 home runs this year?
Yeah, I was going to say with the projection math, that's tough. But the thing with Harper is in the warm months, that's normally when he starts destroying the baseball, and that's when we're starting the season. But my prediction for him was like going in if I would predict like 18-220. So that would be like just under probably, in my opinion, because having a 50 homer projection season in a season like this when everything's all odd and you're coming back and you have to get used to being in a sprint right away, I'm not sure if he's going to get going right away, even though it's in the warm months, because normally he gets off to a little of a slow start, so he might at least have a rough week or so, which with a season like this, that's going to limit you a bit from getting to 20.
All right, Andrew.
I'm gonna say over because of what you stated, Joe. You said he heats up in the warm months, and it's gonna be right in the middle of the warm months, end of July to August and September. And I think the way he kind of, we saw what he did last year when the weather picked up, and obviously he went on a huge roll and picked up his home run total, which wasn't supposed to be that big, and then he finds a way to get to where he got. So I'm gonna go just over around like 22.
22. Okay, that's closer to like a high 50s to 60 home run projection over 162. So that's nearing what Ryan Howard was in his best year. That would be a pretty impressive season for Bryce. Scott, where are you going with this one?
I'm going 23 home runs, and I'm thinking just because it's a hitter season. Pitchers are not going to be in their groove for a little bit. It's warm. They're going to get rocked for the first couple weeks. I think Bryce is going to be hot. Give me 23 home runs.
You know what? That's a good point that the pitchers aren't going to have nearly as much time to prepare for the shortened season. So I'm not going to go 23, but I'm going to go 21. So I will join you and Andrew in the over. So that is the first one. Bryce Harper.
I knew if Rob
under.
went over, he was going to go over by one. Like I knew that was going to be the case. Like he wanted to protect himself to be like, well, if this doesn't happen, I'll be like, well, I only went over by one, where these other two went over by 3 and then 2. So you see, who are the dumbasses now?
I'm surprised that you didn't protect yourself by only going under by 1.
Yeah.
Well, I predicted in between 18 to 20 home runs, so I didn't go under by 2. I said between 18 to 20.
Fair enough. All right,
I just think with his big swing, it's tough. Sorry to cut you. I was just going to say with his big swing, that's why he gets off to slow start sometimes. Because when you have like that more Bellinger, Yelich, smoother lefty swing, that's not like trying to kill somebody while you're swinging a baseball bat. Like, I think that's sometimes why Bryce gets off to a slow start, but then when he gets going, he matches them because of that swing. If because of that you have an off week or like week and some change, and especially 2 weeks in this season, that's not really going to work with getting to 20 home runs with how short this season is.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a good point there. All right, so moving on to the second one, Aaron Nola. Over or under a 3.15 earned run average? Scott, we'll start with you.
Aaron Nola's my boy, but to continue with the same sentiment from before, over 3.15.
Okay, like the consistency there. Andrew?
Yeah, I'm going to go over as well. Also, not just because of how much he might struggle to start the year, but the limited amount of innings to kind of balance that back down that he usually has in other years. Like, again, pitchers have mentioned it before. When the season starts, they're only going to be able to last like four or 5 innings or so. So not only is their win total going to like be affected by that if they can't go a full 5 innings, it's also going to limit them out the innings. So if you give up, say, some pitchers struggle to begin the game. So if you give up 2 or 3 runs in the beginning of the game and then settle down like you usually do, you're not going to have that same kind of efficiency toward the end there. So I think through the beginning of the season and kind of letting them get back to where they want to be, I think that's really going to affect pitchers' ERAs this year. So I'm going to go over 3.15.
All right, so 2 for the over. Boric?
Yeah, this one, honestly, because I know Plesac was talking about an MLB Tonight the other night. I agreed with him. I feel some pitchers might come out and just throw their best stuff this year right out of the gate because they're just going to gun it and throw what they can because they know they're only going to be in for 2 to 3, 4 innings and build up each start. Where if they do that and you have the stuff of Aaron Nola and you know you're only pitching 2 1/3 to 3 1/3, 4 max probably, you're going to come out just firing. And I think with that aspect, he actually has a chance to potentially be just under that. Now, by just under it, I mean like probably like a 3 ERA or like a 3.11 or 1.2 ERA. So like not very under it, but probably just under it. Because he has a chance to be a guy that just goes out there and lights it up, just like Wheeler has a chance to do that because he's obviously a great pitcher as well. And if he's just going to go out there and fire those two guys for 3 and 4 innings, and especially with a manager like Girardi and a coach like Price, I think he might actually have a chance to be under because he's just going to tell him, throw your best stuff, man, because you're only going to be out there for a couple innings.
Yeah, Bork, I'm going to join you on the under, and my reasoning is we all know that Aaron Nola is that Louisiana boy. He loves that swampy weather, that hot, humid, sticky weather that we kind of have right now, and we're probably going to have more of in August, maybe even September. I think that that's going to benefit him a lot because it's been proven throughout his career that that's when he pitches the best. He says that he's able to get a better grip on the baseball because the sweat, I guess, helps him out a little bit somehow. I don't know how that works for him, but he's always pitched better in the warmer months, and it's going to be August and September. September sometimes a little bit cooler, but this year it seems like it might be a little bit on the warmer side. I think that works to his advantage. I think he keeps an ERA of right around 3.
I hope you guys are right.
Yeah, we all hope so.
Also, Rob, when are you applying to become a weatherman?
Oh, man. All right, so moving on to the third over-under here. Andrew McCutchen, a 375 on-base percentage. Over or under? Andrew, we'll start with you.
375 on base percentage, right?
Yes.
I'm gonna go with over. Honestly, I think he's ready to get back after what he's missed. Obviously, I think he led the MLB in walks when he got the injury. If not, it was top 2 or 3 in the league. He knows how to work at bats. I think bringing in the new coaching staff is going to help him even more. I know his average probably wasn't where he wanted it to be, but if I remember correctly, he got off to a great start last year, and it kind of dipped down towards that middle of the season part. So I think he does the same thing. He's going to be aggressive at the plate. He's going to be ready to get back at it, and I think he gets off to a great start, just along with the eagerness to play again. So I think he's going to hit closer to around 270 this year compared to or above compared to where he was at, I think, mid 250s last year. So I think mixed with that and his ability to draw walks again, he's going to be just over 375.
All right, Bork.
I completely agree with Andrew because I'm trying to remember from stats, but I know he had higher than a 375 last year, and he only played around 60 games. I think he played like 59 games last year, and he had around a 380 almost, honestly. I think it was like a 378 or 379. So since he did that in that clip before he got injured, that's literally this whole season. I would say that he's definitely going to do that this year, especially because he looks really healthy coming back. I definitely agree.
And Scott?
I'm going to be the pessimist here. Say he's going to be under. I think he's going to come out a little slow. He was just scorching hot last year when before he got hurt, and I think it's going to take him a little bit to get used to it. Yeah, just under 375, but hey, prove me wrong, Andrew. I hope so.
Well, he gets it from walks, though. It's not like he was getting it from batting average and tearing the cover off the ball because, like Andrew said, his average dipped before he got injured. So if he can just get walked, he's probably going to have a high on base.
Yeah, last year, you were right, Joe. It was 378 on base percentage with a 256 average.
Okay, well, I just said his average was in the 250s. I didn't try to guess what that was.
Well, you said 378, 379
okay,
on base percentage.
That's pretty impressive plate discipline when you consider the fact that his OBP is more than 100 points higher than his batting average.
That's
and his batting average
extremely good
is
plate
not
Exactly.
that bad. So with that being said, I'm going to go over as well. I think that he's going to be refreshed a little bit coming off the injury. He's had a lot of time to heal, and I think he's shown throughout his career that his plate discipline has gotten better as he's gotten older, and he's aged more as a player. He's grown into more of a veteran player. He's one of the smartest guys at the plate in terms of knowing the umpire's strike zone, and that's something that's been mentioned on this show a few times. That's been something that's been mentioned amongst a number of Phillies beat writers, and I think it's going to show. I think that I don't think he'll quite push 400 with the on-base percentage, but I think we could see, somewhere in the mid 380s, maybe pushing 390. And, with the shortened season, if he gets off to a hot start, I think that could help that number a little bit. All right, so moving on to the fourth over-under. Rhys Hoskins, over or under a 260 batting average? Scott, we'll start with you.
It hurts me to say this, but I'm going to say under. Stick with my pessimistic attitude right here. I think Rhys is going to struggle a little bit this year. I don't know why I have that inkling, but yeah, somebody say something positive here. Don't let me go on too long.
Bork?
Well, I think Rhys is more of an RBI homer production guy because even in his rookie year when he came up, he hit right under 260. So, he would have to improve and have his best hitting season to do that. Now, of course, I think he hit above 260 in the first 60 games last year. If I remember correctly from the stat I saw a couple days ago on Twitter, because then he just sucked in the second half last year. He was good in the first 55 to 60, and then after that it was just a whole entire dimension for him. But for me, I would say just under, because his best season was high 250s, but that just under for me is going to be a very productive season with a lot of RBIs for him in this shortened season that would project to probably something in the 80s at least in a 62 game season.
All right, Andrew?
Yeah, he's one of my favorite players, but I think I'm going under as well. I'm going to say about 255. I think it is going to be better than his 226 he hit last year. I think that wasn't the true Hoskins in the second half. So I think he does do better than that, but kind of like what Joe said, with that power, he kind of focuses on that. And obviously last year he loved the walk as well, so he knows how to work at bats as well. But I think he does raise it, just not enough to get over 260 this year.
All right, so I guess I'm going to be the lone wolf saying that he's going to go over 260. I don't think he'll do it by too much. I see him finishing right around the 265 range. I do think that he'll be able to get off to a hot start, maybe through the first 30 games or so, be pushing 300 and start to fall back a little bit over the second half of the regular season. But given that the second half is only going to be 30 games, it won't be enough for that average to dip too low. So I'm sticking with over 260 for Rhys with the batting average this season.
His biggest thing last year was strikeouts. It was the first year he had over the 100 mark. If he can limit that this year, that's also going to bring his batting clip up, obviously.
Yeah, that is a very good point. I don't know what his I would have to look it up, what his batting average on balls in play was, but I'm certain if he could cut down those strikeouts, the batting average will go up.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Moving on to the fifth one here. JT, over or under throwing out 40% of potential base stealers? Andrew, we'll start with you.
That's a good question.
He was damn near 50% last year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm gonna say just around there, so I'll lean over. I'll go about 41, 42%. I think his arm is still gonna be there. I think he's not gonna lose much of his game, and whether he gets extra days off as the DH or not, that might limit his opportunities. But I think he's still gonna throw out just as many players. I think he's that good defensively, so I'm gonna say over.
All right, Scott.
Oh, I completely agree. We're going over on this one. I think JT is a just rub it in like the front office's face kind of year. And yeah, I'm excited to see him. He might throw out 75% of runners because I actually think people are going to come out like slightly out of shape and try to test his arm. So yeah.
That's a unique, interesting take there. I actually kind of agree with that. But Borg?
Yeah, I agree. It's over. Part of it's also because of one of the things Andrew said for why he thinks he will be just over it. Because if you play lesser games in DH, of course, that would keep your percentage even higher if you do really good throwing guys out in lesser time, and guys like Molina, et cetera, have more time behind the plate, so their percentages dip lower. So that would actually probably benefit him rather than hurt him if he keeps throwing guys out at the same clip. But I don't think he's going to DH that much because, like he said last year, I'm not that interested in DHing. So I think he's going to be a guy that only DHs like a few times every so often when he's not catching. But that's why I think he's definitely going to be over, and I think it's going to be around that at least 45 and up close to 50% plateau again because, like Rob said, JT we know and Bryce and all those guys, our team's been working out tenfold. I'm sure some base runners have, but some guys, like Rob said, are probably not in the best base stealing shape that normally steal. So if JT is able to just get those guys to run, he's good at gunning those guys left and right.
Yeah, that was Scott who brought that up. And
oh yeah, Scott, my bad.
I was gonna say, yeah, I certainly agree with that. I think that JT could push the 50% or maybe even higher. I'm not gonna go as high as Scott with the 75%. I think that's a little bit out there, but not totally unfounded though, because that is a really good point that guys won't be in the shape that they're normally in, especially the guys who like to go out there and steal bases. So I think he's going to have a very successful season gunning down runners. In that contract, you're saying, pay me, Middleton.
Give him his money.
Give the man his money. All right, so moving on to the sixth and final over-under here. Vince Velasquez, over or under an average of 20 pitches per inning. Boric, we'll start with you.
Well, this also depends what in the Sam Hell Vince Velasquez is doing. Because I don't know if we figured that out yet. We don't know if he's in the bullpen, he's in the starting rotation. Because I personally believe he can be a decent bullpen piece where he might be able to get under, because then Brian Price is going to tell him, hey, you got a fast pitch, you got a good breaking ball, just go out there and gun the hell out of it. Where if he's a starter, he's definitely going over 20 pitches most innings, because that's just the way he gets. He only has like 1 inning or 1.5 innings where he looks good. Then after he gets 2 outs in that second inning, it's like all hell breaks loose. So that's why I think he would be a good reliever, because if you just look at his stuff and the movement, and now everyone talks about spin rate nowadays, his stuff is really good. So I would say bullpen is best for him, and then he would be under 20 pitches probably. But as a starter, there's no shot he's going to be under 20 pitches in it.
Okay. Andrew?
I'm going over, because even if he is a reliever, he's got to face at least 3 batters now this year. So you figure he's going to throw at least 5 to 6 pitches a batter. And even when he is a reliever, he does look better, but he still throws a good amount of pitches to him. He never gets them out like pretty quickly. So especially with the new rule as well, so he has to face at least three batters, even if he's a reliever. So I'm going over.
All right, Scott.
Yeah, same thing. Definitely over. Vince Velasquez is a big time work guy, so thankfully we'll only see him for an inning at a time.
All right. Well, I went to a Phillies-Tigers game last year, which Velasquez started against as I said, the lowly fucking Tigers, the worst team in all of Major League Baseball. And the Phillies lost the game, in part because they only scored 1 run, but also Vince Velasquez lasted, I believe it was 2 2/3 innings, and he only gave up 3 runs in those, which is still pretty bad, but he threw 99 pitches in 2 2/3 innings.
Jesus Christ. And my arm hurts hearing that stat.
I am scarred for life after watching that game. So, over for the 20 pitches per inning for Vince Velasquez.
See, part of my answer was probably because I tended to always get games with him freaking in them from those packages I would get early and at the end of the season, and he would pitch some good games, and I would be like, okay, I can see him being a good reliever. It's probably because I've seen the guy so many freaking times, because it's like, oh, well, of course Vince Velasquez is pitching again when I have a game in this package. So I believe in him as a reliever, but like Andrew said, that's a good point with the 3-batter rule, but he would still have to have a lot of innings. He goes over 20 as a reliever to average 20. So I feel if he could keep his pitches around 18 most innings, then he would probably average just under 20 as a reliever.
You know where Vince Velasquez will be a bigger help to the Phillies? As a 5th outfielder.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I said on Twitter. I thought that play where he threw left-handed was great, but I loved his outfield plays the best because I almost lost my voice. Andrew, I think you ran to the bathroom to get food or something like that when we were at that game. But I know, like, as soon as he threw it, I was like, yeah! Just screamed as loud as I could in that game. And
oh, man.
Shattered my entire voice box.
And then I'm gonna have to cut that soundbite out of the show and save it for future use. Anyway, moving on to our final topic, as we're now well over the hour point. We're gonna wrap this one up here. We've got a few AMAs left that we haven't answered yet, and we'll get along to those quickly here. So I will start with the first one. What's your favorite song that nobody has heard of? Andrew, I'll start with you.
Favorite song that nobody's heard of? Let's go. Have you guys ever heard of 100 Days by AJR?
I have not.
All right, that works then. I love that song. I think it's my favorite AJR song. So
I'm probably the only one in here that's also heard of it. And Scott, have you heard of it?
I have definitely not. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Boric.
That's a tough damn question. I like a couple songs. I don't know if people know, because I know people know the band Train, but one of the songs I like by them is about San Francisco, Save Me San Francisco. So that's one that people probably don't know by that band, even though that band's very popular. So I would say that would be mine.
It's interesting you brought that up, because I had my one of my more laid-back playlists on as I was driving around for work the other day, and there are a few Train songs that came on, but that was not one of them. I've never heard of it before.
Okay,
I've heard of that before.
Perfect.
It's a good song.
Okay,
Scott?
perfect. See, now I even love Scott even more. Like, Scott's just like building up, like.
Stay tuned for the Joe Boric and Scott West Coast road trip. We will be vlogging.
Yeah. Once quarantine's over, I'll be right there.
Yeah, for sure. So for me, I have my Spotify Discover Weekly open, and usually there's a song every single week that gets stuck in my head. And this week has been a song called Long Distance by The Districts. I had never heard of the band before. I still don't know a single word of the song, but I've probably listened to it 20 times this week. So we'll go with that.
All right. Very nice. I'll have to give these all a listen. Mine is by Dirty Vegas. It's a song called Days Go By, and it's actually fairly popular. It's got over 7 million plays on Spotify, but I still feel like not that many people have actually heard of it. Have any of you guys heard of that song?
I have not.
Nope.
No,
It's one of those songs where if you heard it, you would probably recognize it. You just don't know the name and the artist.
Yeah, I only heard of a song by that name by a different band, because you said it was by Dirty Vegas or something like that?
Dirty Vegas, yep.
Yeah, I never heard of that one now.
Called Days Go By. All right, so moving on to our second AMA. And Scott, we'll start with you this time. What city would you most like to see an expansion baseball team in?
Can I count my hometown of Churchville, Pennsylvania as a city and give them a baseball team?
Oh man,
God knows that the 10,000 people that live there need their own stadium.
Yeah, might as well. I mean, there was a NFL team, I believe, I think it was Pottsgrove at one point, way back in like the 1920s. They won a championship, yeah.
I've got some reading to do tonight, but yeah, shout out to Seville. We'll give us a baseball team.
There you go. All right, Boric.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. Again, we're getting hit with the very hard hitters tonight. I would say if it's a baseball team, it would be sick since they already have a hockey team and they seem to gravitate to that. I just feel if you're able to market and bring them into it at all, people in Vegas are going to gravitate to anything you attract them to in a good way, especially if you put some slot machines in that stadium and so on and so forth. So I would say Vegas would probably be kind of cool.
Yeah, and
Could be
it would
another
work
piece
out
to
because,
go.
as you said, they just brought in the hockey team. Now they got the Raiders coming in as well. So pro
Yeah.
sports, major pro sports are being introduced to Vegas, and so far they've been received very well. The Golden Knights have an awesome fan base out there. They seem to love the team. So I think that Major League Baseball would work pretty well out there. Andrew, what about you?
I'm gonna go with Portland. I think they've been thrown out a couple times for an expansion team. I actually did in one of my classes at Oklahoma State. We one of the projects was we got a groups and we had to pick a spot for an expansion team in any sport. My group picked Portland for baseball, and it just seemed like a really cool destination. Their fan base is pretty good with the Trailblazers out there, and they're pretty close to Seattle, so they already have a rivalry set up down there. So I think Portland would do really well for baseball.
All right, another very valid answer there. Personally, I'm going with Nashville. I think that if you put a ballpark in downtown Nashville, they have such a great nightlife scene with all the country bars out there, and the atmosphere for the game will be great. And you see how dedicated the people are to the Predators. They have a great fan base. Titans have a pretty solid fan base as well. I think the people do like their professional sports, and they don't really. I think the closest Major League Baseball team to Nashville would maybe either be Atlanta or Chicago. I don't know. I'm not that great geographically, but they don't really have Major League Baseball really anywhere close to Tennessee. So I think if you put a team in Nashville, they would definitely draw pretty well out there.
That would be freaking awesome. Yeah, that's another awesome option because that's a place I want to go. Another reason to go there for me, just like Vegas. So put one in Vegas and Nashville while you're at it.
Right? Got to even
And
it up. You
Portland.
got to put
Yeah,
one in each league.
And Portland, and then in Scottstown for 'em. We'll just even it up with 4 new teams, and then it'll even out anyway.
You know what? With all the love that
All new division.
with all the love that the Expos uniforms got in our uniform poll, I'm surprised that none of you said Montreal. All right, but moving on to our third AMA here, and this is the one that related to the pizza question that we had for Andrew's poll. And what's the weirdest topping you've ever put on a food? Andrew, we'll start with you.
We're just topping on food in general, not just pizza.
Weirdest topping on food in general, and
Okay.
it can be like a weird combination. It doesn't have to be a weird topping per se, but a weird combination.
So it's actually something my sister tried, and then I ended up trying it, and it's actually not as bad as it sounds. And that's ketchup and mac and cheese.
Sounds pretty good, actually.
I don't know if you guys have ever tried it, but
I've only done hot sauce and mac and cheese, never done ketchup.
well, yeah, like I never like drown it on it, but like I'll like get the mac and cheese and kind of dip it in ketchup on the side, and it's actually a lot better than you'd think it is.
I don't know, shit. I'll have to try that sometime. Boric, what about you?
I
Is
don't
there
know.
something weirder than hot sauce and mac and cheese?
How the freak is hot sauce weird? They make buffalo mac and cheese.
Fair.
But anyway, I don't know. I use hot sauce for a lot of stuff too. That's kind of like ranch with me. But anyway, I don't put hot sauce on like dumbass stuff though that it shouldn't be on. So I'm pretty particular about my, like, I don't put like hot peppers on shit that it shouldn't be on. I would say probably putting on occasion, because I saw my mom do it, and then I saw somebody do it on one of those TV show things on how they made this like specialty burger. Instead of having like ketchup and mustard, they put like all the like lettuce, tomato, make it more like a sandwich. So they put like mayonnaise and like sandwich toppings on it. So I would say that's probably my weirdest thing.
Okay. Scott?
I remember one particular night when I had come back from the bar and I was hungry and I did not have a whole lot at my disposal, so I had made what I'm gonna call a redneck grilled cheese or a redneck garlic bread grilled cheese. So I had taken Kraft singles, thrown them in some bread that I had laying around, but I had taken mayo and layered it on both sides of the bread, and then I took garlic powder and drizzled it all over the top of both sides of the bread, and then I like fried it up, and it was delicious, but I felt so gross and woke up with one of the worst heartburns I've ever had in my entire life.
Did you cut it in half?
Of course, dude. I'm not a psycho.
Just making sure.
Yeah, you can't catch me off guard like that.
All right, so my weirdest is actually part of a dare during lunch in high school. I ate a chocolate chip cookie with horseradish on it.
Ugh.
Oh.
It was not good.
No, I can imagine. Yeah.
So that's the weirdest one that I've had. All right, so moving on to our fourth AMA. What is your favorite place to sit at Citizens Bank Park? Scott, we'll start with you.
I'm going to assume we mean in your budget at this point. And
Just wherever. I mean, wherever you've sat before, I guess. What's your out of the experiences that you've had?
I mean, my favorite experience was, so actually, I mean, this is somewhat topical now that Sammy Sosa is back in the news, kind of, but I was at, I think it actually was the Vet then too when this happened, but right after Sammy Sosa came back from his cork bat, we had Diamond Club tickets. For whatever reason, we had gotten them as a gift, and I was there with my dad, and I was sitting extremely close, and I got to see Sammy Sosa just get ripped apart by the Phillies faithful, and that was probably the coolest Phillies game I've ever seen as a young child.
There you go. So Diamond Club for you, Boric?
I would say for me, right above the Diamond Club, because I never have had the chance to be in there yet, but I've had a chance a couple times to be in the Hall of Fame Club. Those have been the best seats I've gotten to sit in, because just like the Diamond Club in the hot months, you get to dip back into air conditioning whenever you need to, so it's very nice like that. And they're very nice seats that span, but I usually, when we go there, try to get behind closer to the home plate view, because that's obviously the best view, especially to yell at the umpire as well. So yeah, the Hall of Fame Club's the best for me, but the Diamond Club's one that's on my bucket list to get to, because a lot of friends have been in there and it looks awesome, because you can see the batting cage from that, apparently. The indoor batting cage.
All right, Andrew?
So I guess the favorite spot I've actually sat would be down the first baseline. Those are always pretty cool, kind of see the whole field. But one thing I really enjoyed doing last year, which honestly might be my favorite now, this is something, Joe, you and I did a good amount of times, and that's they added all those new, not seats, but all those new kind of table railing kind of things behind each section kind of thing. So I kind of like going down early, finding a spot behind the plate up there, and kind of I don't mind standing. So like you just kind of go up there and stand right behind the section, right behind the plate, and you kind of get the whole great view, and you can just like enjoy that kind of railing area, so you can like have all your stuff on top of that, and just a great way to kind of space out too, kind of, because it's usually never not too busy, so you kind of get more room as well. So I kind of like that behind the plate standing area.
That's a very good area. That's where I almost leave my police box.
Yeah, I've only passed through there. I actually was in that behind the plate area when I saw Bryce hit his second home run as a Philly, and the first one I saw live was against Atlanta. I didn't have tickets down in that area, but it was so cold in the upper deck that my friends and I decided we would rather walk around the lower concourse, and we actually ended up in that area when Bryce hit that home run. But my favorite place to sit, especially on a nice, breezy but warm summer night, is out in the left field bleachers, maybe like 5 or 6 rows behind the fence. Prime territory to catch a Rhys Hoskins home run ball, or maybe a Bryce opposite field shot. And a perfect place to kind of trash talk the opposing left fielder, if I'm in the mood to do that. So it's always a fun, and it has a good a good view of the field as well. The only downside is that you can't see the scoreboard. You've got to rely on the little strip scoreboard that's along the facing of the second deck. But it is what it is. I love sitting out in left field, so that's what it is for me. All right, so moving on to our final AMA question, the one that I added while we were on the topic of pizza toppings, just to piss off Shane. Here it is. Scott, we'll start with you. Are pickles an acceptable pizza topping?
No, I love pickles, but keep them off my pizza. Next question. Get this out of here.
Oh, man. All right, Boric?
I also very much love pickles, but as stated before, when it came to pineapples, hell no.
Okay, Andrew?
I can't wait to hear the backlash on this, but I'm going yes. I used to work at a pizza place, and I used to take orders, and it wasn't often, but a couple times I get that as a topping, and I have tried it recently before, and it's not bad. I'm a huge pickle person, so I think pickles make anything really better. So, going yes.
Well, Shane might just disown you from the podcast.
Yeah, this might be my last podcast, guys. So,
Andrew, we've never disagreed before, but I'm very upset over here.
Hey, there's a first for everything.
There you go.
We'll bounce back from that.
Scott, you and I disagree quite frequently on food, and this occasion is no different. Pickles on pizza, totally fucking acceptable.
Thank you. That's okay. So whenever we get together and watch a game, we're gonna get pizza and pickles and see what everyone's reaction is. Everyone's gonna be forced to try it.
Shane will not be in the same room as
then
us.
I'll just order a different thing from Uber Eats and wait for it to show up.
Oh, God. Well, you guys got any final thoughts before we wrap this one up here?
I thought this was great and a nice, fun show.
Yeah, it's always good hopping on with you guys.
Yeah, happy to have my little vacation done, and hopefully we'll be back. I'll be back more consistently on the show here, and I'm pumped to talk some more baseball.
It's always great having you guys on, and I just want to throw a shout out in for Just Food. They're located at 4920 Old York Road in Buckingham, Pennsylvania. You can reach them by phone at 215-794-3663. If you're there, tell Asian Rob that you heard about Just Food through the Chasing the Pennant podcast. He is a great friend of the show. Great guy. Such a good selection of food there. You will not be disappointed. Once again, Just Food, that's 4920 Old York Road in Buckingham. By phone at 215-794-3663. I also want to give a shout out to the band that is responsible for our intro and outro music. That is the Jackdaws. As with most other musical acts these days, they are struggling with the COVID shutdown and not being able to perform in venues like they normally would. So give them a follow on wherever you listen to your music. You can also find their Patreon account at www.patreon.com/the Jackdaws. You can financially support them there. They have a whole bunch of merchandise on sale as well at www.thejackdaws.com. Really great band. Celtic rock, if you're into that kind of thing, it's a great listen. I actually followed them on Spotify. I listen to them quite frequently. Very, very good band. So once again, the Jackdaws, www.thejackdaws.com or www.patreon.com/thejackdaws. We thank you for listening to this Sunday edition of the Chasing the Pennant podcast. We look forward to getting another show or two out during the course of the week, and then we'll have another one coming up next Sunday. Thank you for listening.
Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such a jig over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son, still happy life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.